the show. Wait, Leslie Rob said what? What? Leslie Rob said what? What she said? What? Leslie Rob said what?
Well, hello, guys, and welcome to another episode of Leslie Said What? Okay, guys, I hope you guys have been enjoying these episodes as much as I have, because I've been having so much fun with my guests, and tonight is no different. This guest is unbelievable. Okay, because get this. He lived off the grid for 20 years in the mountains, okay, of Montana, and he's now a middle school teacher. So he's going to talk about his journey from mountain man to teaching on a reservation, to teaching in Seoul, South Korea, or teaching in South Korea, to teaching in Kuwait, et cetera, to now teaching middle school in Montana. It's going to be a fun episode. So as per usual, feel free to ask questions in the comments, join the conversation. We want you guys to have fun and enjoy, because that just makes it more interesting. Am I right? All right, guys, without further ado, I'm going to bring him on. Mr. Erik Nelson, a.k.a. Montana Slim. Hey, Erik.
Leslie, that's a big, I got to live up to a lot here, man, with that introduction.
That was a killer introduction. Am I right?
Man, I got a lot of stories I must tell then. It's great to see you. Leslie was my neighbor in Kuwait, by the way.
I love it.
We'll get into that and everything. And she actually just came out and visited us. My wife is also a teacher. And so Leslie came and visited over Christmas, and that was awesome.
Oh my gosh, it was so fantastic. Yes, guys, like Erik just said, the way we met was in Kuwait. Literally, we were neighbors in the Middle East. That's how we met. And so Erik, so tell us, okay, first of all, who is Mr. Nelson? Who is Erik Nelson?
Well, Erik Nelson is, now he's a teacher, but this is kind of my second career. I previously, when I got to Montana, I graduated from TCU down in Texas, and I got my pickup truck, and I said I need to drive to a place where there's not many roads. And so I drove up to Montana, and it all started with watching the movie Jeremiah Johnson when I was 7 years old. And so I told my dad one day I was going to live in a log cabin. And so that's what I did. I lived in a little one-room log cabin for 12 years. I lived on outside of West Yellowstone on Hepkin Lake for 20 years. And so for 13 of those years, I was a wildlife photographer, and I moonlighted as a poker dealer. And so I've dealt many hands of Texas Hold'em. And, I was getting a little bit older. There's, the women are scarce where I was living. There wasn't too many girls. And my mother had been a teacher. And so kind of in the back of my mind, I kind of knew one day once, I got the whole mountain man, Jeremiah Johnson thing out of my system. I think most of it's out of my system, that I would maybe one day go back to school. And so, I had a history degree from TCU, but I wanted to teach younger kids. So what I did was I went back and got an elementary ed degree, and so I wanted to do that, and I wanted to teach. My mother was a teacher; she ran her own nursery school for 27 years, and so teaching has kind of been in my family. And so I did that. I got a degree, and when I was there, I met my wife to be, Christy, who is a teacher and who was, your good friend, and so
it's my bestie.
Yeah. And so, I went back there and I was in elementary ed. And so the ratio was like 20-1 girls to guys. And so I was like, this is a pretty good spot to be in. And so sure enough, we hit it off, and we ended up getting married right when I graduated from Montana State. So I went back to school and I went to Montana State. And before I knew it, we were on our way teaching in an Indian reservation in Fort Belknap, Montana. And so that's where I cut my teeth as a teacher for the first 3 years.
That's so cool. So Erik, what was it like teaching on an Indian reservation?
Well, it was great.
American reservation, sorry.
Yeah, there's 7 reservations in Montana. And so it's the most reservations of any state. And so the Fort Belknap Reservation is in the north central part of the state. I was living in the southwestern part of the state outside of West Yellowstone. And so, I got to credit my my new bride, because I was like, the first thing, I was like, it never even crossed my mind to teach on a reservation because, you hear all these stories. And she's like, well, why not? And I was like, you're right. Why not?
Why not?
And we interviewed and we got the jobs and we went up there. And it was the first year was kind of trial by fire. They test you because they see a lot of people kind of coming and going.
Yeah.
But once they know that you care about them, and they love you, and we really, really did well up there. It was not to say it wasn't difficult, but it was, memories are great. We actually went up there because I taught middle school language arts. And so my two classes we were there for 3 years. So two of the classes that I taught, we ended driving back up to the reservation to see him graduate high school. And so,
oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that was really, really cool. And Christy got a really beautiful prayer blanket that they handmade. And I think you might've seen it in her classroom when you came here. And so
that's so cool.
Yeah, it was a great experience. Great. And we still keep in touch with some of the kids. And so that was, I knew I wanted to be a teacher at that point, because if I didn't want to be a teacher, I would have quit a million times, because there was, there was a lot of difficult moments, but in the end, it was great.
That's awesome. Now, Erik, so you went from teaching on a reservation to teaching in Kuwait and then South Korea. Is that correct?
Well, we did the reservation for 3 years, but then I had an opportunity to come back to Southwest Montana in a little town called Ennis, which sits in a beautiful valley. It's called the Madison Valley. The Madison River runs through it. It is world-class fly fishing. I mean, if you're an outdoorsman, it's a great place. And so I wanted to get back to this neck of the woods. And so I was actually going to come back and just substitute teach. Chrissy was at that point a stay-at-home mom, because we had our first son up on the reservation, Mason, who's now, he's going to be 15 in, a couple months. But I got a job back in Ennis, and I taught in Ennis for 5 years. I coached football. We won a state championship in 2013, which is awesome. And so I love coaching football. But then one day I met this new principal that came in, and he had been teaching in China, in Shanghai, for 10 years. And it really, got my imagination up. I started asking him and his wife questions about what it was like to teach overseas.
Yeah.
And he was like, it's the pinnacle of education.
It really is. I can attest to that.
You get to travel.
Yeah, it's awesome.
You're meeting like-minded people, and I've met you. Look at you. You're awesome. Rock star.
Exactly. That's how we met.
Yeah. And so
you guys just joining us, Erik and I, literally we met because our families lived next door to each other when we were teaching in Kuwait in the Middle East together. So literally across the hall was Erik and his family from me and my husband. Yeah.
So a good story about this. One night, I don't know, Leslie, if you came knocking on my door and you were just like, oh my God, help me. And so I went over to Leslie's, and her entire apartment had like 6 inches of water in it. There was water pouring it. I mean, you could have had a canoe and sat in there and, gone fishing.
Literally.
But that was definitely a memory. Then I remember painting some stuff for you in the hallway.
Oh, yeah.
I kind of did a little a bald eagle and wrote I think it was a
tiger, right?
Scripture out of it. No, there was a tiger on my end.
Oh, your side.
Lion, and then on your end, I did a bald eagle. And so
that's right.
And that's still there, which is cool, because we still know people. Cool. There was a friend of mine in South Korea that I met that actually went to Kuwait. She's like, your paintings are still there. So that was cool.
Yeah. So guys, for those of you who don't know, Erik is also an artist. And if you want to see some of his art, definitely follow him, Nelson Erickson on Nelson Erickson Art on Instagram. His art's incredible. So yeah, definitely check out his artwork. Yes, and like he said, our hallways had empty walls. So Erik literally painted these beautiful murals on our walls in the hallways that connected to each other's apartments, which was so cool.
Do you remember the one I painted in the living room? It was a huge huge valley full of like 20 buffalo.
With a buffalo, yeah.
And then I had to paint it over when I left.
Now that was awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Now, Eric, what grade do you currently teach?
I teach 6th, 7th, and 8th middle school language arts, which
Okay.
is which is what I taught, on the reservation, and then actually the first 3 years overseas, I taught 4th grade, and then there was an opening in my wheelhouse, which is language arts, and so then I went back to teaching language arts in South Korea.
Oh, cool. Now,
Yeah.
guys, if you have any questions for Eric about any of this, feel free to drop them in the comments and we'll get your questions answered. Now, Eric, how's the school year going this year?
Man, I think part of it is just getting older. It just seems that every year goes faster than the last one.
Yeah.
It's like
I
once
feel you.
once Christmas rolls around, man, it's just like all downhill.
Yeah.
And it goes really quickly. And obviously you're really busy as a teacher, and
Oh,
so
yeah.
it goes really quick. And even though the workload in the States it's more than it was in South Korea. In South
For
Korea, I
sure.
was like a college professor. I taught 4 classes and I had 3 preps. That was like being on easy street. You still
Yeah.
had a lot of work to do, but here, in Montana, you're teaching 6 classes and you have 1 period to get ready for them. And so you're busy.
Yeah.
And, we're doing a lot in class and we're having a lot of fun, and the day goes quickly.
Yeah.
It goes really fast. The beginning of the year is fun. You got Halloween, you got Thanksgiving, you got Christmas. And then now that Christmas is over, now I got to figure out what to get my wife for Valentine's Day.
Oh, and you better get something, Eric. You better.
Yeah, if I don't get something, I'm going to get something like a crack in the rear end.
Punch you in the face. Oh
Yep.
my God. Exactly. Oh my gosh. So Eric, when you were I guess the terminology would be mountain man. When you lived off the grid, how long
Yeah.
did you live off the grid for?
I lived off the grid for almost pretty much 20 years. And so
That's so crazy.
I arrived there in the late 80s, and I didn't leave until like 2007 when I started teaching.
Wow.
And so the whole 90s decade, it's kind of funny because you don't have a TV, didn't have a phone. The internet was kind of just getting started. I remember asking people, what is this .com stuff? What's going on with all this .com? And so I had no idea. I had no idea what Friends was, the TV show. Seinfeld, people would talk about it. I'm like, what are you talking about? So now it's like I watch these episodes, because they're out there. And it's kind of funny because I was working in West Yellowstone. I was a wildlife photographer for 13 years. And so I could literally walk out my cabin and be in the wilderness and hike for days without seeing anyone. And then my front yard was a lake. I could have lived there forever, but I wanted to have a family, and it wasn't really the most conducive place to start a family because, like I said before, the women were scarce.
Yeah.
And so I went back to
need
be
a woman for that. Yeah.
I went back to be an elementary ed teacher, and it's great. And I can actually drive to where I lived. It's only an hour away from where I'm living now, and so it's Yellowstone is just an hour away, and we took you there, and we made that goofy video.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. Now, what's funny, guys, is when I went to visit them in Montana for Christmas, it was the best time ever. Definitely going to be an annual thing because, guys, if you've never been to Montana, my gosh, you need to go. It is amazing. And so Eric actually drove me past where the cabin that he lived in off the grid. It was really cool. Yep, up stuff. In the snow.
There's been some development going on in the last 10 years or so, but it was a special spot. It really was.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, it's so funny when you mentioned that you're going to have to get something for Valentine's Day for your wife. Christy said in the comments, from where? The dollar store?
Oh, she's listening. How you doing, Christy? Yeah, I'll get you I don't know what I'll get you. Lots of dollars worth, right?
You're a mess. In the comments, Nessia says, hey, Les. Hey, Ness, thanks for watching. Okay, Eric. So next question for you. Okay. All right. So when you mentioned teaching in South Korea, you said it was like being a college professor. How is it different teaching in Kuwait or South Korea than it is in America?
Okay. Well, in Kuwait, it was a little different because I taught 4th grade. And, the challenges with that, thinking back with that is we didn't even get a lunch break. We actually had to eat lunch with our students. And that was kind of difficult. So
Yeah, it was.
you were pretty much with your kids. You know, they would go to like music and they had a few special, but you were with them a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And the kids in Kuwait, great kids, but they definitely they had a lot of energy and they're very wealthy backgrounds. And so
For sure.
some parents kind of acted like it was a daycare center, and that was kind of tough
Truth.
because
Truth.
some of the kids really weren't there to learn. They were just kind of there to have a good time.
Yeah.
Well, the difficult, challenging part with that is you had to put out a lot of fires, not between the kids and me because they respected me, but they were kind of at each other's throats every now and then, and you kind of had to be that peacemaker. But all in all, that really was a great experience having
Mhm.
parent-teacher conferences with parents. You know, the dads are in their full Kuwaiti garb, and I was like, man, I am totally in a different world.
Legit.
It was
I'm
wild,
with you on that, Eric.
but it was very safe. You know, a lot of
It
people
was very safe. I tell people all the time I felt safer in Kuwait than I do in America.
yeah, no, it was really safe, and
It was
just
awesome.
learning the culture was really neat.
Yeah.
South Korea was different in that if you became like a specialist, like a language arts teacher, the elementary teachers, they I would probably say they worked harder because Christy was a fifth grade teacher, and she had her kids. She didn't have 3 preps like I did.
Yeah.
So I had my 3 prep periods where, I could do all my planning. So it was a little more laid back in that regard, but it was still, there was a lot expected out of you because it was a really expensive school to go to. So the
Mm.
parents were definitely like, they were wanting you to teach your kids.
Oh, for
Absolutely. And
sure.
so you definitely had to keep the relationship going with the parents, like you do in the States here too.
Yeah.
But it was a great experience. Korea is a beautiful place. We lived about a 20-minute walk to the ocean, and we were about a 10-minute walk into the mountains.
Oh,
So,
that's awesome.
we walked everywhere. We probably walked and hiked a good 5 miles a day.
That's amazing. I'll
Yeah,
take that.
the fellow that was our security guy, he would walk in from another village every 3-4 days, and he would walk over a mountain to get there. And he was in his 70s.
That's so cool.
Yeah, they do some serious walking over there, and they're very health conscious. They're exercising a lot, and they got like the best gear. You'll see them trekking up the mountain, and it's pretty funny to see. But they're definitely outdoorsy people, and they were very friendly. It was a great place. Good 5 years.
Oh, that's awesome. So you taught for 2 years in Kuwait, 5 years in South Korea, and then
Well, I
how
taught
long?
4 years. 4 years
4
in
years
South
in
Korea,
Korea.
and that fifth year I took a sabbatical, and I just by the graciousness of my lovely wife, I said, Christy, I just want to paint for a year, and she's like, go for it. And so I
Nice.
just painted my last year.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
well, it's like it's the place to do it if you're gonna do it, because overseas it depends upon what kind of deal you get, but they pay for your housing, they pay for your airfare, so you can save a
Yeah.
lot of money. So the international teaching is it's a good gig. It
I tell
really is.
people all the time about teaching internationally. It's literally changed my life. Like it
Yeah.
is such a good deal. Christy says yes. You ate lunch in your classroom, so you didn't even get a chance of change of scenery. It was a lot. Was that Kuwait that she's mentioning?
Yeah, that was Kuwait. And the kids in Kuwait, boy, the lunches that their nannies would pack their lunches because they all have nannies.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Multiple nannies.
They all have drivers and nannies, and the lunches that they would pack for the kids is probably like, hey, well, what do you want in your lunch? Oh, I want some cupcakes, I want some ring dings, give me a devil dog. It was a lot of sugar.
Yeah, just a
And
tad.
so then after lunch, it's like, man, I had to be a ringmaster and get my lasso out.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh man. Now Christy said in response to you saying she let you take a year off to paint, she said this is her response. She said puke face. So
What you say? Yeah, but this is the benefit of that. I had a great schedule, and so I literally did. I painted about 6 hours a day. Then I would go to the
wow.
coffee shop for an hour, but then I would come home and I would cook dinner every night for Christy and the kids. And
Oh, that's cool.
She really liked that. And so that, and I actually was cooking some good things. And so now when Christy does a lot of the cooking, she's like, "Do you remember South Korea? Do you think you might want to start cooking again?"
So you want to try that again?
Yeah. So
Oh
yeah,
no,
no, it was
that's
good,
awesome.
good stuff. But now it's great to be back in the States, and so that we were fortunate to be able to come back home.
And so you're enjoying teaching in Montana?
Enjoying teaching in Montana. We were smart in that we kept our house, and so we had it rented out while we were gone. And luckily, because after COVID, the property values skyrocketed, and it's just
Yeah.
kind of ridiculous trying to buy a house here anymore. So we
Yeah.
were fortunate for that. We moved back into our house. I got my old job back at my old school,
Nice.
coaching football again, and I also coached track. And then Christy got a job as the special ed teacher, and then my son Mason's in 8th grade, and Elsie's in 6th grade, and they just made friends pretty easily, and they're loving the sports, and it's going well.
Well, you guys have great kids. Like, I don't even like people's kids, but I love your kids.
Wow. We're pretty lucky. Thank you.
Kristen said he called me like beautiful, gracious. That is what I threw up to. That's what she said in the comments.
Well, just make sure you clean it up, dear.
I'm sorry. You guys are a trip. Oh my gosh. All right, guys. So Erik, so this is something that I usually ask all the teachers that come on. I say that teaching is teaching is the mission field, and we have to be the hands and feet of Jesus. How do you see yourself doing that each day?
Well, as every teacher knows, it's much more than just teaching grammar, teaching reading the book. There, especially in junior high, man, there's a lot of things going on with kids at home, and so you got to lift them up. And, you got to give them confidence, and you got to let them know that, you're more than just their teacher. You're actually, if they need someone to talk to, that you're there for them. And so if you can help brighten up their day and just let them know that, hey, like last week, I was like, this too shall pass. This gal and her boyfriend broke up, I think, and she was kind of down in the dumps. I was like, everything's going to be okay. It'll be all right. So when you let kids know that you actually care about them, that's a big thing about teaching. And I think, we don't make a lot of money, and that's not why we do it. But I can tell you, one of the coolest things about teaching is when I see my old students.
Oh,
I run into them. I run them into it in Ennis here, because Ennis is a small town, and I've got students now that have their own kids. Actually one of my students is actually a teacher here in the school.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, and he coaches football with me, and he's got a little boy. And so it's neat when you see old kids and they come up to you and they smile and they want to talk to you, and they tell you how much they enjoyed your class and whatnot. So that makes it kind of worth it.
Yeah, isn't it the best too? Because it's like you see the seed you planted, and like the kids just, I'm the same way. I love getting to see my kids as they grow and change, and like you said, a lot of my kids too. They have kids. Some of them I've taught with. It's crazy. It's mind blowing.
Yeah,
but
it's awesome.
Yeah, we make an investment in future, even though if a lot of times we don't get the pleasure of seeing like the fruits of our labor, or like I always tell people, like in most like corporate jobs and stuff like that, they see the return on their investment. We don't get to see that often. So it's when we can, it's such a blessing.
Yeah, and when you see your old students doing well, they're out in the real world, they got kids, they got families, and you were a part of that, and so you did something right. And I actually still I haven't actually sent them an email in a while, but I keep in touch with my old 8th grade language arts teacher. And
that's awesome.
He was my favorite teacher. He's in his 70s now, but I just remember him in his Edgar Allan Poe unit. And every time I start my own Edgar Allan Poe unit, which is challenging for a lot of kids, right?
It's really challenging for sure.
The reading is it's not the easiest, but I always mention him. And it's just I remember my middle school teachers probably the most.
Oh, and that's awesome. And it's funny that you're actually teaching middle school too.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
and it's funny.
Go figure. It's neat. I think it was, even though I got a later start, I think it was meant to be. And I'm hoping to get, I don't know how many more years I got left, but as long as I keep enjoying it, that's the key.
Yeah. And that's the thing.
Gotta have fun.
It's funny how like the teachers who make the most of an impact on us, we end up teaching that grade level, because that's how it was for me. My high school teachers made the most impact on me, and I teach high school. You're saying that your middle school teacher made the most impact on you, and you're teaching middle school. So it's quite funny how that works.
And originally I thought I wanted to teach like third grade, but then middle school, I was like, man, I love it. And it's not a lot of people's cup of tea, because it's, it's pretty challenging. You got
sure.
You got that age group from about 11 to 14, and but I don't know, I can kind of get myself down to that level, and so they enjoy my humor, and I can joke around with them. If I've said the same thing to the high school kids, they probably roll their eyes.
Oh, for sure.
But the middle school kids love it.
Yeah, I do. They do. They love it.
Yeah, and I love reading to them, and we just, I don't know, we have fun, so it's cool. I can relate to them.
Yeah, and the crazy part is I taught middle school for 1 year. I can never do it again, Eric. I don't know how y'all do it. No. I can't deal with middle schoolers. I don't know. High school is my sweet spot. I did elementary, I did high school, middle school, and in high school is my sweet spot. That's my spot. So it's funny. We all have our preference,
Yeah, and you're awesome at what you do.
No, that's thank you.
Your smile radiates, Leslie.
Oh my gosh, Eric.
Yeah, look at it right now. I gotta sit back because it's coming off the screen.
You are the best. Oh my gosh. In the comments, Carolyn says, yes, they have to know you care before you can make a true impact. And that's so true.
Absolutely. And you just, you when you talk to them, you look at them and you just tell them, hey, what's going every Monday, I'm like, all right, let's have a little community time.
I love it.
What do we do over the weekend? How are we doing? Because, when you take interest in what they're doing outside of class, and the kids here are pretty neat because they're living on ranches, they're helping their dad round up cattle. They're, hunting season is huge here. So they're always bringing me in pictures of, what they got. I shot this big old elk, and I have a wall here with all the photos.
That's so cool.
So the kids here are pretty neat.
Montana's a different world. That's why I said, if you guys have an opening in my area, you guys need to let me know, because I'm coming.
Come on up.
Oh my gosh, y'all! Montana is literally my happy place. I love it. It's perfect.
But I think they're going to lock the gate pretty soon. I mean, because we're getting pretty full.
Well, it's getting crazy, especially after that show Yellowstone. Now everybody wants a ranch in Montana.
Hey, don't believe it. It's pretty romanticized.
Oh my gosh, I know. The show Yellowstone is so romanticized. And then you got all these people gravitating to Montana to buy a ranch.
The scenery is beautiful, but one thing you got to realize is, you got winter. When I lived outside of West Yellowstone, winter was a good, some years, 8-9 months.
Oh my
and
God.
So when I added up all the years that I lived there, man, I lived 75% of my life was in snow up to my waist.
Oh my God.
And so you got to be ready for that. There's been a lot of Southerners moving up, and I don't know if they're actually ready for the winter. Some of them scoot back home pretty quickly.
Oh my gosh, when I was there for Christmas,
you had beautiful weather.
It was perfect.
It was like the heavens opened up for you, and like the wind wasn't blowing. It was clear skies.
It was perfection.
We're gonna call that Leslie weather.
Yes, that was Leslie weather, because like walking in the snow with the bazillion dogs you guys have.
Good times, right?
It was incredible. Guys, for those of you who don't know, I am so not a dog person, but Christy somehow wrangled me into taking a picture with 5 dogs. But
and
anyway.
she doesn't eat food that, if somebody has a cat on the counter.
I'm sorry, that is so funny. If you guys don't know what we're talking about, we made this video. Christy and I made one, but me and Eric made one as well, of like people who keep cats on the counter and like expect you to eat at their house. That ain't happening. You got a cat on your counter, I ain't eating at your house. It's just not a thing. Stella said in the comments, he's right. You have a beautiful smile. Thank you, Miss Stella.
Yes, you do, Leslie.
That is so kind, guys. Thank you. In the comments, Carolyn said, yeah, no, thank you. to the Montana weather. Oh my gosh. Yes, Carolyn, we got it. She was saying to the snow, because you said it was up to, where'd you say, up to your waist?
Well, I mean, geez, in West, you would drive your car along the roads, and the snow would be, because of the plows, 20 feet high.
That's insane.
Yeah,
Oh
I
my
mean, it was
gosh.
because it's on a plateau. West Yellowstone sits on a plateau, and so a lot of times in the lower 48, it was the coldest spot in the country. And so we'd have stretches where it was 50 below for
50
4 or 5
below
days,
freezing?
50 below zero for 4 or 5 days at a time, at least like 3 times every winter. But when you get that cold, then when it's like 0 degrees or 10 degrees, you're out there in a sweatshirt
That's insane.
because it's warm. We actually had 40 below here this year, and the creek froze up and the water diverted its path and flooded into our garage. That was fun.
Oh, that's lovely. But you know
Yeah.
what's crazy is when I came to visit, I didn't even need my coat initially that first day. It was
When you were
like,
here, it was like 40, 50 degrees. It was
yeah,
crazy.
I was like, whoop whoop. And then the
Yeah.
next week it was like -40 or
Well, it
something.
dropped 80 degrees.
Oh, that's insane.
Mhm.
Yeah, Laura says in the comments, yeah, no cats. No cats.
Well, yeah. Well, I tell my wife that, but we have cats. I like cats, but I don't want them coming up into my studio because you know what they like to do? They like to scratch at my carpets that I got in Kuwait.
Oh, and we know
And
those carpets in
I'm
Kuwait
like,
are
no,
precious.
you can't do that.
No,
That was a
those
chore.
carpet guys were precious.
That was a chore just getting them back to the States.
Yeah, oh my gosh, wasn't it a chore for
Yeah.
sure?
And you had our one big one in your place.
Yeah,
We left there. Yeah, it's awesome.
yeah. The carpets and all those different things in Kuwait are just next level. It's nothing like you get here for sure.
Handmade. Handmade.
Handmade for
Yeah,
sure.
no cats in my art studio.
Carolyn says in the comments, and we close school here for wind. But you guys will close it for snow.
Well, geez, if we closed school here for wind, we wouldn't have any school.
Right, especially in the valley, right? Where you guys are.
It can blow here. Absolutely.
Yeah, because I remember the one night that I was there and the wind was just crazily blowing. So
Sometimes you feel like your roof's going to blow off.
oh, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It can be windy.
Well, guys, Erik, thank you so much for taking time to be here. We know that like after school time for a teacher is precious. So we thank you so much for taking time to be here. Guys, be sure to follow Erik on social media at Nelson Erickson Art on Instagram to definitely check out his art. Christy is saying in the comments, and now our friend from Montana, who is now in Kuwait, has that rug that you had, Leslie, the huge one, which is insane to me. It's like it's literally going through friend to friend to friend. It's crazy. And like Christy said, small world. Thank you, Christy. She said we did great, Erik. So we got the Christy approval.
I'm so glad I can come home to dinner tonight. That's good.
Exactly. Laura says in the comment, awesome show. So thank you. So Erik, apparently we did good, Erik. Who knew? The two of us together.
That's because you're a great host.
Right? Well, thanks. I appreciate you being here.
Salt and pepper.
Yeah, guys, because Erik and I are in 2 different time zones. So it's like 4:45 p.m. right after school for Erik, but it's 6:45 here. So Erik definitely wins.
East Coast to mountain time.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you definitely win because I've been out of school for a few hours. You just got out not too long ago.
Yeah.
So
that's good.
And Christy said, of course it was great. Well, thank you, Christy. We got the Christy approval in the comments. But Erik, as per usual, thank you so much for being here. One last question for you. Do you have any additional encouragement for fellow teachers who want to give up?
Don't give up. No, it always hits, a couple times a year, I always have those days and I'm like, man, I'm done. I can't do it anymore. Right. But luckily it only lasts for a day or two. And then I have that great moment with a student or, I'm teaching a lesson that I'm totally into and I'm bouncing off the walls and I'm having fun. And I'm just like, I was kind of meant to do this because you are helping out kids. We don't do it to get rich in our pocketbook, but spiritually it is pretty neat in the impact that you can have on these kids. And I think it's important to teach what you like. I teach language arts, and so I love reading and writing, and I love standing up there in front of my class and reading out of books and discussing novels with them. And, we're doing the Holocaust in 8th grade, and we're doing the Underground Railroad in 6th, 7th grade. And so just teach what you like. That's important.
That's essential. I like that, Eric. Like, so guys, those of you who are teaching and you do feel like you want to give up, maybe it's not necessarily teaching in general. Maybe it's the subject you teach. Maybe find something that you're passionate about and teach that. And also, to piggyback off of Eric, not all the times is it the teaching content. It may be the school that you're at. So you may want to try to switch up the school. So,
and you can go overseas too.
You can go overseas and live it up like we did.
See the world.
Yes, see the world through teaching, which is freaking fantastic.
It is.
Now, guys, if you know a friend who would be interested in watching this, definitely share it with them. Tell them to go to lesliesaidwhat.com in a few hours, and it'll be live there for them to watch it. Or tomorrow, if you know that they are a listener, tell them to go to any major podcast channel, and it will be available tomorrow via podcast on all podcast channels. So, Eric, thank you again for being here.
You're a rock star, Leslie. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
Keep up the good work, and we will see you next Christmas.
Yes, you will. Montana, guys, that's my second home.
All right.
All right, Eric, thanks again.
All right, adios. See you, everybody. Thanks.
Oh my gosh, wasn't that awesome? Erik was so great. Like, I just love having friends on because then I can just be myself and we go with the conversation. We have a lot of fun. All right, guys. So thank you again for taking time out of your schedule to be here tonight, to be here live. For those of you who are listening via podcast, thank you for being a dedicated listener. We truly appreciate it. But other than that, guys, that's all we have for tonight. Leslie Said What? Season 4, episode 14 is out.